Well, hello, Susan. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you, Sonia, for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Well, let's go ahead and dive right in. Tell me about your business, Aviva Publishing.
Well, thank you. So yes, I've had many different businesses, but the one that I'm putting my focus in at the moment is Aviva Publishing, which is what they call a vanity press. It's uh, in in the middle between a traditional publisher and self-publishing,
Okay.
and I work with nonfiction authors primarily to help them publish their book, but more importantly, to help them identify and penetrate a niche market so that they really can become known as a recognized expert in their field.
Got it. Now, what would you say is the specific problem that you solve for the people that you serve?
To help them overcome that fear of sales and marketing,
Okay.
because they write the book and then they're like, well, will you market it for me? Will you sell it for me? And I'm like, you're going to do that. I'm going to hold your hand, but you're going to do that.
Got it, got it. So do you help them? You're a publishing house, but you're also sort of training them on the marketing aspects of it as well.
Yes, I mean, primarily my background is marketing, sales and marketing. And so that's what I'm helping them do. And sort of the publishing side is, yes, that's part of it, but the main part is really the marketing because once they've written it, they've got to do something with it. And it's an ongoing
Right.
process, is that sales and marketing.
For sure. For sure. All right. So what made you decide that you were going to be the one to solve this problem?
Well, I don't know that I thought I was the one to solve this problem, but I know that that's what happened when I spoke to my authors, that they would always say, well, I don't like to sell, I don't know how to sell, I don't know how to market. And I'm like, okay, there's a need here.
Hmm.
So, and really that's what I capitalized on, is the fact that there is a need. And so that's what I do
From
for,
you went from
for
there.
the authors. Yes.
Basically, well, I mean, I love it because business really is all about solving problems, right? So you saw a very clear problem and a need, and you're like, hey, let's fill it. So I think that's great.
Yes, very much so.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit and talk more about your experiences as an entrepreneur. What would you say overall was the biggest barrier in mindset that you experienced that limited your success in some way? And how did you overcome it?
So for me, and I didn't realize this for a long time, but it was that what they call the imposter syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
is feeling like a fraud. Here you are training other people, coaching other people, and you're like, why me? I'm going out there and saying I'm an expert, but not necessarily always feeling like the expert.
Mm-hmm.
And so learning how to, that saying, fake it until you can make it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so true. I mean, you've got to get out there and do it. And if you don't do it, you can't practice. And practice makes perfect, all
Mm-hmm.
those little cliches, but they work. And,
Right.
it's very true. So, yeah.
Was there a certain turning point for you where you felt like, oh, I'm playing small, oh, I'm not really living up into the fullness of what I could actually accomplish, that made you say, I've got to do something about this imposter syndrome?
I I went through the sort of ebbs and flows of one time I would feel, that I was on top of the world and felt I knew what I needed to know. And then other times I would doubt myself. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a continual process, but the dips aren't as deep as they have been in the
Right,
past.
right.
And so, that line little goes up and down just a little bit,
Got it.
but
Now,
it's more up than down.
well, that's good. Aside from faking it and until you make it in terms of doing that practice and doing the work, is there anything else that you do to sort of keep that imposter syndrome at bay? Because 70% of people are a statistic for people who experience this. So it's a lot, like it's most of us, right? So is there anything
Exactly.
else that you do to keep it in check?
Well, there's that little voice inside your head. So I've got to work with that little voice and tell it to go and take a hike.
Hmm.
So, yes, and interestingly enough that you quote that statistic because I didn't realize that for a long time, that
Hmm.
other people felt the same way because
Right.
people didn't talk about it.
Right.
I think we're much more honest and authentic these days than we have been in the past. And so it's okay to admit now you don't necessarily know something. But I
Hmm.
remember starting out thinking, there's no way that I would admit that I didn't know anything.
Right.
It was because people were coming to me, so they expected me to know it.
Right.
And, it was if, oh my goodness, I'm a failure, I am an imposter, I am a fraud if I
Right.
admit that. So,
Right. No, that's a good one. All right. So you are teaching your authors how to market and market their books, sell their books. I
correct.
imagine that as you're going through the process of not only publishing their books, but teaching them all these different things they need to do, you've got a lot of systems, you've got a lot of habits that you rely on to help you get everything done. So, for you personally, what are the habits that you have that help keep you sane so you can run this business effectively and, create that transformation for your customers?
I've got to keep myself healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you're on a gluten-free diet because we've discussed that in the past. So
Mm-hmm.
that for me is very important. Just staying healthy, looking after my body. I do yoga, I work out, and I've got to do that for myself because I spend a lot of time alone
Mm-hmm.
in my office. I mean, we're entrepreneurs, we're solopreneurs, many of us. And so I've got to have that. I've got to have that contact. Um, I also, as you know, do my podcast
Mm-hmm.
and I learn so much from other people. And that really excites me as well, learning for experts like yourself.
Right.
And that just helps keep me very sane.
For sure. For sure. So you've got those things that help you. Now let's talk a little bit about the systems that you have in your business. Did you deliberately set out to say, all right, like we got to put these processes in place? Like how did that sort of process evolve for you to make sure that you know that this is how I'm doing, this is how we do things so that you don't miss steps and things like that?
I think this is not what you want to hear, but I'm not very system oriented.
Okay, okay.
And interestingly enough, I spent 25 years in the trade show industry.
Okay.
And in that 25 years, I became an expert in that industry.
Okay.
And I published many different hundreds and thousands of articles and books. And, I just really had that, what do you call it? Just the status as an expert in the
Right.
industry.
Right.
And I sort of lost the passion for that. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, I wonder if the system I use to become, or the strategies that I use to become
Okay.
an expert in that industry,
Okay.
could I take those and share that with other people so that they can become experts in their industry?
Okay.
And from that, I developed my whole riches in niches model.
Okay.
And that's my international best-selling book, Riches and Niches, How to Make It Big
Sweet.
in a Small Market. And that's actually 10 different strategies on how to become an expert in a particular industry
Right.
or area.
Right.
And I actually did it backwards. So I got to where I was, and then I said, well, what did I do to get here?
Uh-huh.
I went backwards and said, okay, these are the steps. This is what happened. This is what, if somebody else were to do it,
Mm-hmm.
this is the process they need to take. And now, interestingly enough, so in hindsight, I'm using some of those systems so that it doesn't have to take me 25 years to be seen as an expert in this area.
That's wonderful. But like business is messy, right? And I think the messiness of the way business operates and how we interact with each other is the beauty of it, and it's the thing that kind of gives us this energy and this joy. Sometimes it's frustrating, of course.
Yes. It evolves,
Right.
I mean, it's a living organism, so, it's got to evolve. And so that's really how my business, so I'm not very structured when it comes to certain systems. I can
Hmm.
learn from somebody who does have systems, but I'm not a systems person.
Right, but it sounds like what you're doing is working well for you, so I think that's great. As long as it works, right? Like as long as it
Yeah,
works,
always looking to make it better.
Yes,
Always looking to make it
for
better.
sure, for sure. All right, so what would you say is your superpower?
I didn't think I had one. That was really interesting. I was like, okay, what is my superpower?
Hmm.
Um, so I I've got a very deep di width and breadth of experience.
Okay.
I think that's the best way to, I've worked in over 30 different industries. I've lived and worked on four different continents. I've spoken to thousands of people, trained them. I've written over 14 books. So it's like, okay, I think there's a width and breadth to my expertise. And
Hmm.
that's really what I believe I bring to the market. Because, yeah, I mean, coaches, consultants, some of them will look the same. So you really have to be a little different to stand
For
out.
sure.
We've all got our own experiences. You've got yours. I know that you live in South America part of the year, and
Hmm.
so you bring that to your business, and it makes you unique.
For sure, it does. It does. But I think a lot of times people discount some of their experiences, but whenever they actually should be saying, oh, yeah, this is what helps make me different. This does give me a unique perspective. But I think unless you take inventory of that, or people start to point things out to you, it's easy to take for granted. So I'm glad that
Yes.
you recognize that. Yeah, I do got like experience. I mean, you've published 20 like thousands of articles. Like that's
Articles.
amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Who's done that?
I mean, I have published a lot, and so it's like I didn't think of it in the time. You do it. I mean, I know you publish regularly as well, and so it mounts up, and then it becomes this body of work.
Yes.
And when you can show people that, they see you more as an expert in that field, and so you're not just saying it; they're seeing it. It's proof.
Right. Can anyone become an expert?
Absolutely.
Is
Yeah.
is
I
it just
mean, yeah, I think you've got to really know and understand the area that you want to say you're an expert in. You can't just, I don't believe you can do it overnight.
right,
I get
right,
very frustrated with people who think, in 4 days I'm going to become an expert. No, that's not going to happen.
right.
You've got to develop that body of work, I believe. I think you've got to go out and you've really got to, you know, walk in the trenches. You've really got to do B, C. I like to, really embrace every aspect of that expertise
Hmm.
to feel comfortable saying, yes, I'm an expert in this area.
No, I think that's good. There's this whole immediate gratification, delayed gratification, playing the long term game, and it's not at all what is sold in entrepreneurship. The long term game, delayed gratification, because nobody wants to do that. They want it right now, but in terms of sustainable success, you have
Mm,
to put that work in. So,
absolutely.
what do you do to stay in tune with the needs of your customers so that you're able to give them what they want even whenever they might not know what they want and the time that it takes to be able to do it, because I think I imagine that they probably aren't so pleased when they find out that the time it takes to become an expert to be able to sell all these books that they want isn't in 30 days. Right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they have to realize that it's just going to take time. However, they've written a book.
Yes.
So that in and of itself helps make them an expert
Yes.
in the subject. So they've got to take that message and understand what value that message is to their target audience.
Mm-hmm.
And when they do that and they can go out and feel confident, I think more of it is confidence. It's building that confidence that they can do it and they really are an expert. And even if they haven't gone out and done it just yet, they've only just written the book,
Right.
they can still go out and do it.
For
And they've
sure.
just got to do it and do it and do it.
For sure. All
Practice.
right. What are would you say are your three keys to success?
My three keys to success. I think perseverance is just being willing to be knocked down and bounce back up again because it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's never, a smooth, straight road to the destination. And then a belief in yourself that you can do it. And thirdly, I think that you've got to have passion for what it is that you do. So if you've got those three things, I think you can do anything.
For sure, for sure. Now, knowing everything that you know now from your experience as an entrepreneur, and now with the hindsight of those 25 years in the trade show
Passion
industry, what advice would you give yourself at the point at which you were starting out building your business?
is not be afraid to ask for help. I think that for me was one of the hardest things to do
Okay.
because I was taught that if you wanted to know something, you better go out and find it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost like I didn't dare ask. Um, and I found that held me back a lot because that meant that I had to know it all and I didn't know it all and I know that I didn't know it all.
Mm-hmm.
So not be frightened to go out there. Look for mentors, look for the right people to coach you, and don't be frightened to ask for help. I mean, you have to pay for it sometimes, but ask.
Right. Do you give yourself a marker of when it's time to ask for help versus when you should push through and try to figure it out on your own?
I think I start trying to do it myself.
Okay.
And then when I come across a wall, a barrier of some kind, then I say, help. And then I go looking for the right person to help me.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel very blessed. I've got a lot of contacts and I'm making contacts all the time, all these wonderful experts that I'm interviewing on my Book Marketing Mentors podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, I think I try it first and then when I need help, that's when I ask for it. But it doesn't mean you have to do it that way.
It's a good rule of thumb, though. I think that works. This has been great. Where can people find you?
Where can they find me? So, if they want to find more out about Aviva Publishing, the publishing company, and to email me at Susan at Aviva, AVIVA,
Mm-hmm.
Pubs, P for Peter, UB for Bertie, S for sugar.com. And if they'd like a copy of the 10 questions to help find your niche, I'd be happy to send them that.
Sure, and I'll have all the information in the show notes. So I've got this one other quick question. Well, I've got another quick question, but you mentioned your best-selling book, Riches in the Niche.
Riches in niches.
Riches and Niches. So I know a lot of people resist niching.
Mhm.
So I would you tell us the thing about niches that you want to always drive home to your authors and that apparently that you've discovered yourself about niches.
It's much easier to market to a smaller group than it is to market to a bigger group.
Right.
I'm all for let's make it easy. You know, it's much more effective and efficient in terms
Okay.
of marketing. You've got more opportunity to stand out as an expert in
Mm-hmm.
a crowded marketplace. And as you know, as well as I, that marketplace is getting more and more crowded by the, I was going to say by the day, it's almost probably by the hour or the
For
minute.
sure.
So you've got to find ways of standing out. And if you put your time and energy into a niche market, it's going to be quicker and a lot easier. And interestingly enough, you can charge more for your services because you are the expert in the industry.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. Susan, this has been great. Before I let you go, here is the one last question that I have for you. Just to dig inside your head a little more and see how you think. And that's to deliver a line from a movie that speaks to you and explain why you chose that one.
So I love that question. I love that question. And I have to think, long and hard because I don't always remember things from movies.
Okay.
Um, there's a fabulous cartoon called Inside Out. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's all about different emotions.
Okay.
And so the main character is joy, and then there's sadness and
Mm,
anger and fear.
okay.
And I can't remember the exact scene in the movie, but fear talks about, well, we didn't die today. So I say that that was an unqualified success. And, we're fearful that we are going to die, when we have to make a speech, do a presentation, whatever it is, we think, oh my goodness, this is going to be the end of the world. And the
Hmm.
fact is, it isn't. And you live to tell the tale. So that's
I
my, I,
like it. Nobody died today. Like, or I didn't, like we didn't hurt. I love it. I love it. I love it. And you know what? Sometimes as a business owners, that's what you have to say. Like, I am still standing.
exactly,
I am still
exactly.
standing. Or even whenever you fall on your face, I am still alive. Like, I survived a train. I survived getting hit by a train,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
that gives you a whole different perspective about what's really important, and it makes you much more resilient, and willing to try again. So I
Yes,
love it.
very much so.
Susan, again, it's been a pleasure.
My pleasure, and thank you.
Thank you.